Stitcher, on YouTube, and most other social media properties. This is the Red Sox Alley Show. I'm Rob Goodwin.
I'm John Corn.
How are you tonight, sir?
I'm good. Happy New Year to you and to our listeners.
All right. Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you.
I paused because this is the last day that I will be saying Happy New Year.
You were whining about that last year, weren't you?
Yeah, this is the second year in a row that I've just declared a moratorium. After about a week, I'm done saying Happy New Year. It's past. I'm not gonna belabor the point because you're right. I did go into it last year, maybe a little bit too much. I think I bored you and Flanagan.
Yeah, but what if people want to say Happy New Year to you? What's the big deal about that?
I don't know. I just get
sounds like you're a little impatient with people.
We're going to be into February and they're going to be still saying Happy New Year.
I don't think so. But even if they are, so what?
All right.
What if somebody walks by in the hall in the middle of February this year and says Happy New Year? How's it going to harm you?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Just say Happy New Year.
All right.
You know?
All right, you convinced me.
Yeah.
You convinced me.
So Happy New Year.
You too. You too.
Thank you.
So since we were last together, I know Flanagan and I did a show, and he's on assignment tonight, by the way. And we did a show. And since then, they signed, or actually traded for a new closer, Ryan Hanran from Pittsburgh. What do you think of that acquisition?
Good acquisition. They didn't give up a lot. They gave a bunch of prospects, didn't they?
Yeah, that's it. And they really did not give away anybody from their A list. Yeah. They gave away Stolmy, Pulamental, and I'm not even sure who else. They didn't give up Jackie Bradley Jr. or Matt Barnes or Bogarts, that shortstop that they've got in the minor leagues. So I'm surprised that they were able to pull it off. And they were certainly apparently looking for a closer to at least augment Andrew Bailey or replace Andrew Bailey because Hanran's been
augment?
told. Yeah.
Oh, what does that mean?
It means to backfill, sort of.
Oh, backfill? Well,
yeah.
You mean like in addition to?
In addition to.
Oh, okay. In addition to Andrew Bailey, they have another closer.
That's right.
Yeah, so Andrew Bailey will be the setup man, and Hanran will be the closer.
Looks like it, and they've got a couple other options, as you've pointed out.
It took a lot longer to say Bailey would be the setup man, and Hanran will be the closer, and I wanted to say augment. So
I've been trying to improve my vocabulary. I guess I need to let you in on it first. I'll give you my dictionary, and I'll have little bookmarks of new words I'm using.
But what if I can't read them?
Then we'll have to deal with that when the time comes.
Anyway, yeah, no, it's a good acquisition.
As you can see, we have no pre-production meetings to do this show.
It shows me that they're looking to contend next year to go get a closer of that caliber, and to give up prospects for it.
And they've got their eyes open as far as who could improve the team without saying anything set in stone. Which you're right, that shows flexibility and foresight.
If they just were going to build like they said they were, like people were speculating they would have given up prospects.
Right.
So maybe they're going to make some more moves and try to contend.
Well, so let's assume they're just about done. I mean, Napoli, that signing apparently is getting closer, at least that's what we heard yesterday, although with no details. So let's say that gets done. And you look at the acquisitions they've made, Victorino, Johnny Gomes, David Ross, Ryan Dempster from the Rangers, signed from the Rangers, longtime Chicago Cub, who eats a lot of innings. I think he's 35 or 36. Do you think this team can contend for a wild card? I mean, there are 2 wild card spots now.
Well, there's 2 thoughts. My first reaction was not in the East. There's too many good teams. But as some say, there's so many good teams in the East that they'll beat each other up. You might not need to win more than 90 games to win the division. They all play each other 19 times. Baltimore plays New York. New York plays Boston. Boston plays Toronto. And they're going to, conceivably be 500 against each other. And
well, and plus you could have. Well, there are 2 wild cards. I don't expect both of them.
Second wild card, yeah.
Second wild card. So, but you're still only going to have 2 playoff teams at most coming from any one division. I mean, you can't have 3.
They need more hitting, though. I think they need to get more bats.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking. I mean,
I'm just trying to visualize their lineup: Ellsbury, Pedroia, Middlebrooks,
right.
Poppy,
maybe Victorino. I mean, you got Gomes in there. You got Napoli in there. You got Saltamakia.
It's not. That's not a championship caliber lineup.
Well, here's my thoughts.
Once you hit number 4 with Poppy, I mean, you kind of get lost there.
Well, if they had signed Josh Hamilton or a player like Josh Hamilton, that probably would have been too much of a commitment for them. At least they weren't willing to go that many years, let's say 5 or more. Yeah. And the way I look at it, they've got some veterans there. I mean, Victorino being the primary one I'm thinking of, where, he's past his prime. But just because a player is past his prime doesn't mean he can't contribute on a competitive level, especially when the games really count. Those are the kind of guys that will rise to the occasion. And I'm hoping Victorino is one like that. I mean, Will Middlebrooks, to me, is a key to the season.
Yeah.
As far as having a good start, being able to rip the ball, extra base hits, driving in runs. He's really, to me, a key offensively to this team because, you pretty much know what you're going to get out of Pedroia. And there are a lot of other unknowns. I mean, Victorino is one, Gomes is one.
The first 4 guys in the lineup, you're pretty confident. Mm-hmm. You got Ellsbury, Pedroia, probably Middlebrooks, and then Poppy.
Right.
After that, it's a little bit spotty there.
Now, I posed a question on Facebook a couple weeks ago of how many games is this team going to win? And I got everywhere from 79 to 87. Now, what are your thoughts on how many wins they could have? Up to 90? 92?
They look like a 500 team to me. But like we said, you may not need more than 90 wins to get into the playoffs this year in the East.
Right.
With the second wild card and the fact that all these teams play each other so much, it's I mean, what if they got hot and they won 90 games? I mean, it's conceivable they could get into the playoffs, but I wouldn't bet on them.
Well, plus, I think it all depends on how much better their starting pitching is than other teams in the American League East. I think it's not we need 2 20-game winners or we need to win 60 games between the first 4 starters. I think it all works out to how well do they match up statistically against everybody else.
Well, I mean, can Lester and Buchholz be a good number 1, number 2 starters, and can Dempster,
Lackey,
and Felix Doubront be a 3, 4, and 5?
Yep.
I mean, it looks like they can, but time will tell, right?
Right, exactly.
The only thing that looks really solid is the bullpen.
I agree.
I mean, the bullpen looks great, but they could fall apart, and the starting pitching could be great. You can't tell in the wintertime.
Right, and you never know.
It's July before you can really see who the best teams are.
Right, and injuries happen, and then as soon as you have someone hurt, you've got to figure out who's going to fill that role, who's best to fill that role.
And another thing that makes you a little nervous, too, we named 5 starters. That's all we could name.
Right.
If you can't name 8 or 9 in February or March, you probably don't have enough pitching.
Right.
And you know what they say about pitching.
You can never have too much of it.
You can never have too much of it.
And don't forget, you do have Alfredo Aceves, who could start.
That's right.
And probably wants to start as opposed to being in the predicament he was in last year, relieving. So, that's another possibility. But again, to your point, that's 6.
Yeah.
Ruby De La Rosa, I don't know if he's ready or not. He came over in the trade with the Dodgers. I know that this week the Red Sox are having their annual get-together of young players, kind of an orientation of off-the-field activities to kind of get them used to what it's going to be like in Boston with the press and the public. I know that Farrell is there. I think Varitek is coming up. And Ruby De La Rosa is one of them. Alan Webster, one of the other players that came from the Dodgers, are participating. So, you never know. That Ruby De La Rosa could play a part. Maybe not right away out of spring training, but maybe, as you get into the May, June to see what the requirements are and how he's doing down in the minor leagues. You never know. So the Hall of Fame voting comes out.
Yes.
Is it tomorrow, right?
The 9th. The 9th is tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So today is January 8th. And kind of interesting class coming in.
Yeah, a couple of guys that would be first ballot Hall of Famers. Looks like they won't get in.
What are your thoughts on the 2 big ones, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds? Let's start with Clemens. Should he get in?
Absolutely. You cut this guy's accomplishments in half, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is.
And he hasn't been found guilty of anything. That's the other thing. What
he's guilty of is everybody hates him. I mean, Really?
Right. So what if he had been found guilty, and of course it wouldn't necessarily be in a court of law, but I mean, let's say they found out that he did in fact use performance-enhancing drugs, even though if you cut his statistics in half, he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Would you vote for him? Let's say he did performance-enhancing drugs. Would you vote for him?
Yes, I would.
Any concerns about the fact that if a player who did performance-enhancing drugs gets into the Hall of Fame, you will lose all of the current Hall of Famers, and they will not go to any more induction ceremonies? Would that weigh on your thoughts? If you had a ballot to cast, would that weigh on your thoughts?
I suppose. I mean, what's a performance-enhancing drug? I mean, it's so murky. What exactly did he take?
Let's say. I'm just saying.
He's accused of performance-enhancing drugs.
Let's say he did. Let's say it was proven that he knowingly took steroids. Would you vote for him? And thinking about
no, but he didn't. He took HDH to get through injuries.
I don't even think he's admitted that. I don't think he's admitted that. Andy Pettitte did.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between that.
Right.
One's legal and one isn't. Number one. Okay.
Right.
Number two, if you're taking something to get through an injury, that's a different motive than to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Number three, what generation of players hasn't taken performance-enhancing drugs? Come on, let's get real here. Amphetamines.
Mm-hmm. True.
All right. Mickey Mantle never walked out into the field after pulling an all-nighter and got handed some amphetamines by his trainer.
Right.
Before he went out into center field. That never happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we want to just be murky and say performance-enhancing drugs, then we got to take a look at everybody in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's specifically, yeah. I mean, what kind of steroids were they taking? Were they taking illegal steroids? And okay, but this is just too murky. I'm watching this him in front of Congress there. I don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I never heard anything other than accusations and denials and finger pointing.
I was surprised.
You can't come to a conclusion with that.
And the point of view that kind of struck me a couple weeks ago was someone who said, if I withhold my vote, then I'm voting for the fact that I believe this person did performance-enhancing drugs when there's no evidence. So who am I to be making that decision? I need to make the decision based on the statistics. And if there is a player like a Rafael Palmeiro who did performance-enhancing drugs, that's a different story. But the person that I'm basing, some people are expecting me to base my decision on something that may or may not have happened, and that rung true with me.
And the only reason Clemens got in trouble is because he lied to a bunch of congressmen. That's his real crime.
Right.
If he groveled in front of them for 5 minutes, it would have been a dead issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did it. I'm sorry. That's all you had to do.
Right.
So the whole thing is just, it was handled so badly on the other side. What they did was worse than anything Clemens ever allegedly did.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I would vote for him.
Well, I think what's going to be interesting is the reaction of the current Hall of Famers.
Now, someone like McGuire is different. McGuire is not a Hall of Famer without those numbers.
Right.
McGuire, the only thing he ever did was hit home runs.
Yep.
Okay, so you got to take that into consideration.
Sure.
But Barry Bonds, Clemens, these guys are Hall of Famers. If Barry Bonds never hit a home run in his life, he's a Hall of Famer on all the other stuff he did.
The only thing that struck me about Barry Bonds and his record is how unbelievable it is that he won MVP awards in the early 90s, and then the 2001 to 2004 he was back again for all the for 4 consecutive ones. How in the world does a player win awards that far apart, but not just win one, in the later part, but wins 4 in a row? That's got to raise eyebrows. And I believe that no matter what he says, I know we don't want to get into the whole issue to go on and on about it, but he knew what he was doing. He took performance-enhancing drugs. That's why he won 4 MVPs. That's why he had the number late in his career that he did.
Yeah.
You have to. We know that. I mean, that's a given no matter what he's willing to admit or not admit.
But on the other hand, who could win 7 MVPs unless they were Hall of Fame caliber player in the first place?
Right.
You can't just take steroids and go out and win 7 MVPs.
Right.
If you could do that, they would do it.
Right. I mean, you could probably take steroids and become very, very good for a short period of time. But you're right, unless you actually have the talent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe that Roger Clemens won 7 Cy Young Awards 20 years apart because he was taking HGH. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right. Good point. Good point.
But he made himself look like he drew up a bad case against himself, the way he handled himself. And he's not going to get voted in tomorrow.
Right. Right.
No way.
So before we conclude, I just wanted to mention one thing. The NHL lockout is over, and it was stupid. I'm not saying I don't care because I know there are a lot of Bruins fans out there that care. There are a lot of fans in Philadelphia and Detroit and Chicago and a lot of NHL cities that are happy that the game will be back in about a week and a half. But I want to point out
48 games they're going to play?
Yeah, yeah. But I want to point out that baseball signed their last labor agreement without fanfare in 2011, right around the time the NFL lockout was over. And no one even knew they had an agreement. And if you go to the end of this current agreement, it will have been 21 years of labor peace in Major League Baseball, which would have been unheard of if you went back to the mid-'90s when the last strike and lockout happened, that this will be 21 years. And I think for somehow the union and the owners have an understanding of what's good for the game. And I don't know. I think that personally that came about because the last labor agreement or the last big one was in 2002. It was after September 11th, and the country wouldn't have put up with a bunch of millionaires sitting on the sidelines, not playing the game and not allowing fans to see them play the game. And I think that somehow set a tone for Major League Baseball. And I think all the other sports who've had lockouts recently, they need to take notice. I think that's the only way I can explain it.
Of course, baseball players make more money than hockey players.
Well, look, they play a more popular sport. Plain and simple.
And they play more. They play 162 times versus 82 times.
Right, but I mean, if there was only one game a week on TV, baseball, and otherwise that was it nationally, baseball wouldn't have the revenue it has with the national contract.
They make more than football players. Football is more popular than baseball, isn't it?
Yep. Well, plus football is a whole different animal. The contracts aren't guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, but I think the other sports need to take a cue from baseball. And I'm happy that baseball is leading the way. It is the national pastime, no matter what people say. No, college football is not the national pastime. It's baseball. And I'm glad that they're setting the tone for other sports, and I hope they would kind of take notice.
Indeed.
Any concluding thoughts?
Jack Morris looks like he's finally going to get into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, now
back to the Hall of Fame talk. He's a great pitcher.
He was. Now, he got 69% of the vote last year and needs 75. I don't think that's a stretch.
It looks like he might get in. That'd be nice.
Your sources say he will get in.
My sources say
with what percent of the vote do you say? Approximately
over 75.
Over 75.
Yeah, I don't know how much.
Well, he's being modest. He told me before the show he knows exactly what percentage Jack Morris is going to get of the vote.
80.
No, you said 81.
81.
So we'll see if John Cornyn's right about Jack Morris getting in with 81% of the vote.
I'd like to see Curt Schilling get in. He won't. He'll never get in the first ballot. But he may be like Jack Morris. He may eventually get in.
It's funny you should say that. I was comparing their statistics. Schilling pitched in more games because he had more relief appearances. Some of the Schilling statistics are in line or better than Jack Morris. Jack Morris has, I think it's, I want to say 28 more wins because he started more games. But some of their statistics are comparable.
Schilling's got a lot of strikeouts, doesn't he? He has 3,000 strikeouts,
yeah,
I believe.
He does.
That could get him in.
3,128, I believe.
And does Morris have that many?
No. Not far behind, but not that many.
So Schilling's strikeouts, that 3,000 plateau of strikeouts could get him in.
Exactly.
And he was a big game pitcher.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Jack Morris was too.
No, Jack Morris, would he win 2 World Series with the Twins?
Oh, yeah. He pitched a gem. The 1990 or 1991 World Series. He pitched
Game 7, right?
Yeah, he pitched like 10 innings.
10 innings, yeah. I'm not sure if it was Game 7, but yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Exactly.
So him and Schilling both have a what they call him big game.
Absolutely.
A big game pitcher.
No question.
They put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
Yeah. people remember that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
So,
Well,
I think Schilling will eventually get in.
I hope so.
He's one of my favorites.
Yep, yep. Well, thanks for joining me in the library of the Central Connecticut studios of Red Sox Alley. We'll see if we can get a show.
All these books behind you, so people think you're smart.
All my signed baseballs. Yep. Well, I don't know if people think I'm smart, but they might.
They might.
And if you right up there is the Complete Idiot's Guide to Golf. That's how smart I am. You impressed?
I don't even have that. That's how smart I am.
You must have some other golf book that's brainy.
I just watch you.
Oh yeah,
I just copy you.
That's why you're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is I'm a lefty, so you keep hitting from the wrong side of the ball.
Oh, is that the problem?
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks for joining me tonight in the Central Connecticut studios, and we'll see if we can get a show together with the three of us, including Flanagan, who's on assignment vacation. I don't know where he is. He doesn't seem to say.
Kind of secretive, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's got a reputation to protect.
Yeah, all right.
I'm not saying if it's good or bad, but he's got a reputation to protect. All right, Mr. Corn, have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Good night.